All right. So the example of a can opener. Um, asked about a specific. It's about 27 miles away to Sydney. Unstable connection. Again, I do apologize. It's about 27 miles to Sydney, Nebraska. And a couple more miles from right at the edge of the town to where Cabela's is and all of that. That's the area where Walmart is. Right across the street from Cabela's hotels that don't belong to Cabela's anymore. Um, Cabela's sold their company in order to try to keep their employees happy and keep Western Nebraska families from having to break apart or move from places that they grew up. Cabela's made a special deal with Bass Pro. Bass Pro, after getting what they wanted, went back on their deal and fucked over a bunch of people here in Nebraska. Bass Pro, you can suck my dick. All right, so let's continue. We're talking about a can opener, right? This is what I need the can opener for. I'm going to show you the difference between this and the regular can opener works on, and I'm going to show you why it doesn't work. Part of the reason is because, well, today, somebody who meant well typed something that was wrong, which I get a lot. In this case, it's something that nobody is really going to get all sorts of pissed off and bent out of shape about because it's just a goddamn can opener. I'm not going to get bent out of shape over a can opener. I got this specific type of can opener so I could do this while I was at Ken and Leah's. It cost me like $14. Most useful tools that I had. um, I guess the first thing I'm going to do is let you know the comment that I got because I am looking for that type of can opener, the side cut type of can opener. Um, it's taking a minute to load up, so I do apologize. All right. So the comment that I got, um, Dyslexic commented, you can use a regular can opener for that. Just put it on the top instead of the side of the can, and it will cut it how you want. That's not true. I would like it for it to be true. My response was, and I'll show you why too. Nope, it won't work for what I need it for. I have already checked to see if regular can opener will work. It won't. There isn't enough lip on the outside to connect. The top is too deep for penetration, and it doesn't allow me to reseat the top for reassembly, even if the lip did allow a connection and the top wasn't too deep to penetrate the can. I'm not pointing out that you are wrong to be a jerk. I'm pointing out why in the hope that an explanation will help you to understand. Thank you for trying, though. Um, See, a hacksaw, I've used hacksaws to open cans. I've used screwdrivers to open cans. I've used all sorts of stuff to open up cans that have food in them. But this doesn't contain food. It's made out of stainless steel, and it's a little bit thicker than a regular can, first of all. Second of all, you see the lip on the side. You see how it's flush mounted. Let me find a food can here real quick, and I'll show you the differences. All right, here we got a can of green beans. We're gonna compare the lips on these. Now, when we look at the side, look at the lip on this. See how it comes out away from the can a little bit, although the paper on this is about the loosest paper I've ever seen on a can, and I don't want to take the label off because if I do, I won't remember these are green beans and I'll open this nasty shit up when I don't have a casserole to drown it out. I never liked green beans ever, especially in a can. Yeah. But another thing that we're going to look at is how deep it is. Penetration. That's important. If you can't penetrate the metal, especially from the top, the way the regular can opener works. Now, although this person said to turn the can opener sideways, this can opener thing isn't going to work on this. Now, first of all, if I cut it on the inside here like a regular can opener works, when I try to reassemble it, this part's just going to flop back and forth in and out. I use a P38 can opener. There's two types of military can openers from around the Vietnam era. One of them is the P31, that's the smaller of the two. The other, or the P38, that's the smaller of the two. The P51 is larger. The problem is that the P51, being as it's larger, it's more prone to bending because you have more force at the end of the fulcrum. Those of you who are familiar with leverage and things of that nature, those of you who actually paid attention in science class know exactly what I'm talking about. To open a can like that, you need a Dremel and a cutting wheel. No, I don't. The first can I ever cut open, I used that specific can opener for. The sideways cut ones, the ones that cut, instead of cutting around the top like this, they cut around the center of this thing right here. But with a regular can opener, you have to be able to catch that lip. Now I'm going to show you, as soon as I figure out where the hell I put my keys, I'm going to show you a P38. This right here is a P38 can opener. The way this works, let me show you this up close. This is a P38 can opener. You notice how it's got this little shark fin here? You pop that open. Here it click into place. That's your can opener. This part right here penetrates the top of the can. Now this works similar to a regular can opener. You take it here, you take this little notch that's in the metal, and that goes over the lip, and it grabs underneath, just like a regular can opener. And then this, just like the round part of the can opener, this shark fin will penetrate the can. All you have to do is push it like this, and it'll actually cut through the can. And then you move it back part of an inch, and then you do it again and again and again and again and again. And this is how the military opens their cans, especially out in the field. Now let's try that with this right here. See how thick that is? Let's try to get this up. No, it's not even going to fit in that little groove on the side that holds it there and allows you to get the leverage that actually punctures it. And even if I could, it doesn't go all the way over it well enough to do that. Now, this lady or gentleman, I don't know which one it is, Diz Lexic, I think is their name. I'd say the steel on that oil filter is too strong for a P38. It absolutely is. It's not just too strong for a P38, it's too deep to actually get the P38 in there to penetrate. Now, being as a P38 penetrates more than a regular can opener, you know, the ones with the dial on the side, you just turn that little crank and it turns the can for you and cuts it open. Well, that round disc that's on it does the cutting instead of something like this. But that round disc, this lip here, all the way around that disc is going to be cutting in, first of all, I need to be able to replace the top, which means that the can openers that cut along this seam here, and then they allow you to set it right back in place. That's what I need, because this right here, when you disassemble an oil filter, there's a reason that you're cutting it apart. The reason that you're cutting it apart is because you are checking for metal flakes and for gunk in your engine oil that's going to be stuck in here. More than likely, it's going to be in between the filter and the filter body and itself. basically what you're trying to do is see that after you've already poured out the oil, the interior, if there's a lot of wear on your engine, and let's say you get a burr on one of your cylinder housings, that burr is going to tear off metal. It's also going to create a lot of wear that's going to allow oil to seep past the piston rings. So when you cut these open after they've been used in an engine, you're not cutting them open with the intention of reassembling them as something else. You are cutting into them similar to doing an autopsy on someone's liver. You know, when somebody dies, you want to know who the hell happened, and you go through the parts and see what the potential issues are. With me, though, this oil filter has never been used. It's never had oil in it. It's been sitting in a garage for probably close to 10 years. And I don't intend on using it as an oil filter. I intend on using it as a prototype jet engine to test different concepts. It's cheap. Now, I've seen a few jet engines that are made out of oil filters. I've seen one in real life, and I've seen one of them on the internet, and that's about it. You could use a hatch. No, I can't. See, what I'd like to do is there's a thing called an inverter welder. They're tiny. They don't take much room at all. They only weld about 1/16 inch rod or smaller. And when I cut the top off of here with that other type of can opener, it'll cut along the center of this top seam, which those of you who have those new type can openers are aware of. Also, many of you who have tried to use a regular can opener in the way that this person said to, you're already aware of the fact that it doesn't work that way. It'd be nice if it did, and maybe there are one or two specialty companies out there that made one that'll work both ways, but I don't have that company name, and I don't have the money to buy 400 can openers to see which ones it is, especially since the companies that do that are obviously obscure companies, because all of the major companies that produce can openers, I've bought can openers from, and I have tested every single one of them to see if I could use a regular can opener sideways. Now, part of the thing with a jet engine is this thing right here, I want it to be flush mounted. If I cut it on the inside here instead of the outside here, on the outside here, it's going to want to automatically flush mount. But if I cut around the inside here, then it's never going to be flush mounted. And it's also never going to hold itself in place. It's also going to be 10 times more difficult to weld in that little area. So it's not a matter of people having bad ideas. It's a matter of there's a lot that goes into it that you might not have thought about. And a lot of times when you're having ideas like Lester the carpetbagger here, typing you could use a hatchet. Now he's just trying to be funny, which I'm actually fine with. You know, he's not trying to be a complete and total douchebag, although there was a guy called Chester the carpetbagger. When I first made my channel, I actually blocked him from the channel because he was trolling. Yeah, what a pain in the ass. Your name is off by one letter. Now, there's a lot of stuff that's just like that. I asked for a can opener, and a specific can opener, because it is a specific tool that I do need in order to process, and also for other processes. Many of the cans that I've used, let me show you one that I cut open with a P38. I was testing to see if this would fit in it. This one right here is a pull tab. You notice how it has a full ring all the way around? It's got the full lip, and this is all nice and clean cut all the way around. Well, I might have just cut my finger there. Pull tabs are kind of dangerous. Um, uh, where the hell did I put that can? Here it is. No, that's not it. That's another pull tab. Where the hell did I put it? I literally just had that can here. I specifically pulled it out to show y'all. Mm. Here it is. This is what a P38 does. Let's see if we can get it up there close enough and block the light enough that you can actually see inside of it. All right, you see those little tiny teeth all the way around the inside? Each one of those teeth is created when I have to slide the can opener back just a little bit and do it again. All right. This right here, this is from a street sweeper. Not the shotgun, but the actual street sweeper that sweeps your seat or sweeps your roads, probably in your local municipality as well. They're flat, so they work pretty good for most stuff, but this right here had, well, this is a can of fruit, can of peaches. And as a result, when I put the lid back in it, the lid, over a couple of days, when it dried, got stuck. So what I'm doing, this thing right here is wider this way than it is this way. So what I'm doing is, all the way around the edge of the part that's stuck, I'm putting it in the flat way and then turning it like a key. And hopefully that'll free it all up. However, you know what? It's just a can. We'll actually use the can opener and show you how this works. Take this, put it on there. We go. And that's P38 can opener works. Now it doesn't work nearly as good as the one that you got at home that's attached to the wall. It doesn't work nearly as good as the turnkey type that you have in your drawer, but it still functions. And although it hurts your fingers, especially if you, well, if you end up pissing off your unit and you end up on grub duty, you might end up with a P38 and 6 to 8 hours worth of opening up cans like this until your fingers are fucking bleeding and cramped. And the reason I say that is because I actually know somebody who had to do that. He got in trouble in his unit, and I don't remember what it was for. It was something pretty fucking trivial, and I remember that because I remember making fun of him. Like, really? You get in trouble for that in the military? There are special oil fields. Shit. My connection is unstable. All right, it's not unstable anymore. It's hopefully letting me talk. Can opener. P38. A lot of times you have suggestions that are great, but they're, well, they're lacking a lot of the information and a lot of the ideas. You could use a hatchet. Oh wow, not me. There are special oil filter openers, but they go for almost $100. And in Chapel, Nebraska, everything's more expensive, so you're looking at about 150. When I was down in Denver, I was surprised at how cheap the wood was compared to here. I was also surprised by how many tools there were that you can't get here or that you can't afford here. I bought a crescent wrench. That's one of the most important tools, especially being as I don't have a full set of ratchets or anything like that. A crescent wrench will allow me to grip stuff that's all sorts of different bolt sizes and heads. The problem is that the crescent wrench here, the lumberyard only had two. One of them's really huge and super expensive, and the other one is pretty small, and it's 22 fucking bucks. So As we all know, you go to Walmart, you can get a crescent wrench for $8. One that'll work and do the job, perform the function. It's a lot cheaper than 22 bucks. Matter of fact, for the amount that I would save in gas or save on buying it, I could literally pay somebody with a pickup truck to drive me from here to Sydney, Nebraska to Walmart 30 miles away and then back. Now, the problem is getting someone who's willing to do that, especially with the whole COVID thing and with all of the hatred towards me over the slander and things of that nature. I'm going to put this P38 back on my keychain. There used to be a lot more survival stuff on this, but I actually separated my keychain into two different keychains now. My survival keychain is up there at the house, just in case I'm at the house and there's an emergency and I gotta go. Or apartment, sorry. Whereas here, I don't need any of that survival stuff. Homeless and a lot of people who prepare for emergency readiness, you have what's called a go bag. That's for in case of emergencies. If the Russians start dropping bombs and it's time to go, your go bag is prepared. If you have a stalker who won't leave you alone and you need to go to a friend's house, your go bag is prepared. If the police decide they're going to come confiscate your house because you have terrorists across the street from you and they want to be able to watch the terrorists, you've got your go bag. If you end up with a situation where somebody in your household is in need of medical services and you can't get to medical services, you've got your go bag. If you can't drive there because of the snow, you've got your go bag. If you got to lump it, then lump it. I've lumped over 100 miles in full gear, and I'm not talking about military gear, I'm talking about homeless gear. But altogether, I've lumped over 100 miles to help people out of fucked up situations. When I say lumped over 100 miles, I'm not counting the trip from Bozeman, Montana to Boulder, Colorado over a decade ago. That one right there, I had a vehicle. I had a bicycle with a trailer that I had made for it out of a baby stroller and a baby's crib. And I loaded it down with all sorts of stuff. Books, gear, clothing, all sorts of stuff like that. But when you're lumping it, it's on your back. When you're walking through the Rocky Mountains, you can't exactly carry a trailer like that and a bike and all of that gear. You got to worry about just the essentials. And a go bag, it's a pretty good idea to have because, well, you never know when there is going to be a situation where you might have to actually leave in an emergency or the like. Lana and Amanda Engeline both have go bags. Where did they learn that trick? They learned it from me. When I was up there, they wanted help with their go bags because Lana has a bad back. And they wanted to get some ideas on what to put in her go bag that she can carry. And her daughter will basically do it in tandem. Her daughter would carry the heavy pack, the mother would carry the light pack, and the two kids would carry, well, who knows? They have a couple of rucksacks, so far as I was told, but I never saw them. There are several oil filter openers, and I've seen them. I've watched them use it, and a lot of people, as soon as I started showing them the oil filter and telling them what I needed, they start looking up on YouTube how to open up an oil filter. Now, most of these people aren't mechanics, and it doesn't really register to them because of lack of experience, not stupidity, just lack of experience. They're not making the connection that, number one, I don't need to disassemble it like that. I'm not going to use tin snips and destroy the thing. because then I can't put it back together. And I need it to be put back together because after I modify it, I'm going to want to try to use it, and I'm going to want to try to be able to do it as easily as possible instead of adding 400 processes. Even if the P38 would work, which it won't, and the P51, the cutting edge isn't bigger. It's just the handle part. That's why the P51 handle bends, and the P38 handle does not. You can't get enough grip on the P38 handle far enough away from the fulcrum for it to bend, unless you're really trying to on purpose. And over time, you'll get metal wear, and it'll eventually happen anyway. But the thing is, you know, when I first showed this, people were like, oh, well, you know, I looked that up on the internet, and you can cut that open with tin snips. I know. I'm aware. It's also a pain in the ass, and it's not going to go back together afterwards, which is the most important part. I want to be able to use the can again after I cut the top off of it. Matter of fact, it's really of no use to me until the top is cut off of it. And it does need to be neat. It doesn't need to be neat because I'm going to try to sell it, or I'm going to try to, you know, make some $1 million thing and paint it up with a real pretty logo and a whole bunch of crap like that. No, I just want to use the junk to test the concepts. When I had the shop outside of Boulder on 75th and Arapahoe, me and Josh Hughes sat down with 5 or 6 different ideas and pieces that we had assembled, and we tested out these concepts. And at the same time, you know, we were able to figure out a lot of stuff out. My original idea for a steam-based engine was what's called a pulse jet, and I had it strapped down to a brick with one of those, you know, you remember the chains they used to have on the little kids' plastic swing sets back in the 80s? I mean, it's basically a piece of wire that's bent into the shape of a chain, sort of, and then they twist it in the center, and they're just weird looking, and it's thin wire, and that's what I had it strapped down with. Now, because of the shape of it, I was actually able to get it so that when I did strap it down, there was a portion of the metal that was up through one of those rings, and it was strapped down to a cinder block. Now, we turned it on, and I noticed that although a pulse jet does get red hot, and you get pretty used to it, seeing the chain turn red hot was scary as shit. So I decided that I was going to cool it down real quick I had a water bottle at the time, and it had obviously water in it. I don't drink alcohol. And I just squirted a tiny bit into the intake end, and the thing broke the chain, took off, and we never found it again. That was my first steam pulse jet, and I didn't even do it on purpose. After that, I was able to make my second steam pulse jet. I bet the guy's name is Joshua Hughes. He went to the Air Force Academy in Colorado, and he does know a bit about aerodynamics. He just knows more about the actual flying part than he does about the construction part. I bet Josh Hughes I could make a pulse jet with no moving parts in 10 minutes. I lost the bet because it took me 12, but I did it with a hacksaw, a rock, and a hammer. Matter of fact, I have pictures of that pulse jet. I also used, because I used two different diameters of pipe, one of them inside of the other. The inside pipe is the pulse jet, and it turns red hot real quick. But then it's got a sleeve around it that's welded at the top. I didn't have the ability to weld it at the time. What I did is I stuck a whole bunch of aluminum foil into the very, very front, and then I tried to braze it in with a soldering iron. It didn't work too good. But the reason for the sleeve around the outside is because between the inside sleeve and the outside sleeve is where you pump in the water. and it's completely closed off on the front, but it's completely open on the back. That way, you can't build up enough pressure to blow it up. That was one of the biggest issues with the steam engines right around the turn of the last century. We're talking about 1900s, 1890s. Electricity and gasoline and steam were all competing. Matter of fact, it looked for a time there like either electricity or steam were going to work because there's a lot more fucking torque. You make an electric motor, not only do you get a lot more torque than you would if it was an internal combustion engine, you get it immediately. And I do know somebody, Necro-Dead type, the oil filter cutter was the only thing I could see that would cut it cleanly. Well, see those side cutting can openers, the ones that cut it around the side seam right here, those will go through an oil filter. Those are strong enough to go through an oil filter. And even though just barely, they're able to fit over the top and they're able to go all the way around the circumference. I know because I've used them before. Part of the reason that I know what's inside of an oil filter is because I've opened them up. Now, I knew it was inside of an oil filter before I ever opened one up before. But that's from diagrams and notes and things of that nature. It's completely different seeing it 3D with your own two eyes. And that was a can and not an oil filter. I apologize for shaking it instead of this. But he typed that or a really big pipe cutter. Now, Stegeman, his dad is the local plumber. If connection unstable again. Anyway, I guess we're reconnected. There's a chance that if they are willing to help me, I'll just have to watch them use the pipe cutter and do that. I do have some plumbing equipment that's for big stuff, like a pipe vise and things of that nature, but I don't want to damage this either. The tool that I picked in specific for doing the job is because I've had that tool before and I've used it for this job before. And once you cut around the ring, the whole assembly slides out, everything that's in here. There's actually a little button. It looks like a strap. It's about 3/4 of an inch to an inch wide, and then usually a little bit longer than the width of this because they bend it into shape. So that it basically is a pressure button. So that pressure button, that basically keeps on the inside of here, you probably can't, you can't. I was going to try, but I realized it's not going to work. There's an internal thing inside of here that's full of holes, and then it stops right about here. Now there's this space right in here where oil's going to be circulating, and that space in there is held up by that strip of metal. It's not actually welded to the thing or anything like that. It just comes right out. But I mean, it's important for me, being as I do want to use it to make a prototype jet engine. And I'm aware that it probably won't work long, but we'll have to see about that. There's a lot of things that I built that I thought would last 10 minutes, and I was just glad that I got it fixed so that I could finish my job because there's about 8 minutes worth of job left. But then that fix just held and held and held and held and held, and I'm going, wow, that's really nice. Or sometimes I build something about it. I try to build it out of the original materials it's made out of, which we don't make stuff that great anymore in America. We don't. We sell stuff that is 10 times more expensive than the crap made in China, and we make it the same way they make it in China. It's junk. America used to be known for quality. Now we're known for overpriced junk. Now, what's the purpose of this jet engine? Especially if I'm just going to do all of my stuff with pulse jets, and this is obviously not going to be used as a pulse jet. This would be like a combustion chamber on a real jet engine. Now, part of the thing that I would have to do in order to make that happen is there's a paper, or what's the word they use? Basically, it's a filament paper. It's made for getting all the stuff, all the metal flakes out. When you cut a can opener and you start, or when you cut a can open and you start looking for the metal flakes, it's actually those paper ribs or filaments or whatever that you're searching in the most to try to find metal chunks, because they're gonna stick in it. But part of the reason for making a combustion chamber is to test if you can make one combustion chamber work. If you can make it work and it'll last a while, you can do a lot of your testing with it. If you're going to be doing testing with it and it's made out of lesser materials, it's not going to last as long. You're not going to get as much test time out of it. And you also increases your chance of stuff like blowout, which you're really not likely to have with this type of combustor. The other thing is, it is open enough that it's not going to outright explode. Anytime that you have compressed air and compressed explosive, or an explosive gas, or propellant gas, or anything of that nature, if it's enclosed, you literally just made yourself a bomb. You didn't give the gases anywhere to escape to. They're still expanding. And that's when you end up with an explosion, just like the steam engines had problems back in the day. A boiler, the external sleeve basically replaces the boiler and the piston package and everything in between. You're using two types of fuel, sure, but a pulse jet can run on just about any combustible liquid or gas, just like a regular jet engine. The Chrysler car ran on Schnell number 5. The MiG-15, they ran it on vodka. Does that mean they always ran it on vodka or Schnell number 5? No, they burned it on that. They use those fuels in these jet engines to show that you don't have to do it with just gas engines. You don't have to use just gasoline or just expensive alcohol at the time, because they used a very high octane of alcohol. And of course, one of them is the Chrysler car, so it's an automobile, and the other one is a jet engine for an airplane. But they're very similar, and they can also, with very minor modifications, run on actual gas. I don't mean gasoline. I mean gases like propane or hydrogen or things of that nature. But for a flammable liquid, you don't have to do any of that changeover. You can literally fill it up with gasoline and run it on gasoline. When you run out of gasoline, fill it up with Schnell number 5. It'll run on Schnell number 5. When you run out of that, get your vodka. It'll run on the vodka. When you run out of vodka, what are other flammable liquids that you have the availability to use? You can use brake fluid. Matter of fact, I think when I made my first pulse jet, I think that's actually what we were using for fuel was, pardon me. No, my first pulse jet, we used regular gasoline. I take that back. The one that disappeared in the field off on 75th and Arapahoe, yeah, that was gas. Now there's a pulse jet called the Redhead. It's made by Hobby King, and you get about 6 to 7 pounds of thrust on regular gasoline. You can increase that to 11 pounds of thrust if you use propane. However, if you put a steam sleeve around it, you can increase that. Now, mind you, when I put the steam sleeve around mine, it was gasoline. And my gasoline, even though mine was about the same size as a Hobby King Redhead, it was made out of thicker pipe, and there were 2 of them, and it didn't have a big, massive, heavy assembly at the front with a bunch of junk. It was just basically 2 pipes with some cuts in them that are turned a specific way and crimped together. Um, with the steam sleeve, though, you get a lot more power. You get more power at low speed out of the steam than you actually get out of the pulse jet. Now, once you start getting up to higher speeds and different altitudes, that changes dramatically. The faster you go, the less the steam has an impact, and the more the pulse jet has an impact. And because of the way that I designed the facing, hopefully, if I did the math right, it'll actually, sorry, I had like 4 or 5 thoughts go through my head right when I said that, and I lost where I was at. Well, my pulse jet weighed just a little over a pound over what a Hobby King is. It's around 3.5 pounds, something like that. It's not heavy at all. But then what we're also talking about is that mine, just on gasoline, was getting about 11 pounds of thrust just on the gasoline. Now, if we try to do a conversion on that, we're not going to be able to do it because there's a lot of stuff that really goes into it, from the length of the tube, the diameter of the tube, things of that nature. But if mine is about the same length and about the approximate diameter of pulse jet as a Hobby King Redhead, and theirs gets 6 pounds of thrust on gasoline, mine gets 11 pounds of thrust on gasoline, theirs gets 11 pounds of thrust off of propane. How much more thrust am I going to get if I use propane? Now, mind you, this is before putting any steam into it whatsoever, and you're not injecting steam into it. You're actually injecting just straight water. A pulse jet gets so incredibly hot that that water turns to steam instantly. That's also part of the reason for trying to use stainless steel when all possible. Stainless steel can withstand the corrosive effects, and it also withstands the cracking effects of if you were to make it out of something like, say, cast iron. Cast iron will withstand a lot of it, but cast iron will actually melt. Whereas stainless steel, because of the, not because of the chromium, but because of the nickel in it. Nickel, when you start getting it up to higher temperatures, it actually gets stronger. It gets a stronger tensile strength. All right, I saw a hair fluttering like this, and I was trying to get it so that it was out of my view. It turns out it's just a reflection on the wall that's shaking. But you know how it looks when you've got a hair that's real close and the sun is coming off of it. It kind of looks the same. But a lot of the thing with a pulse jet, one guy on here, he had a great idea that I had as well. Now, is that me trying to take his idea? Oh, no. It takes years of development to be able to do this stuff. And some people, if they have the shop already set up, they can do it on a whim. And I don't know whether he did it on a whim or if he had been planning this out for years. I know most of the stuff that I try to design and build, I do plan out for years, and I work on it when I can. But he made a pulse jet turbine. What he did is he took a turbine blade and placed it behind a pulse jet, and he put the pulse jet off center from the center of it. That way he could hit it where he wanted to and get the most rotation out of the turbine. And the turbine was just so that he could power a battery or charge a battery. And that charging of the battery was so that he could keep the engine moving instead of having to have, 2 or 3 batteries there for in case of accidental shut off or things of that nature. He basically just attached in an injector and a fucking shocker and fucking get that thing going pretty much immediately. The Hobby King pulse jet, part of the thing that's so astounding about the fact that mine gets more thrust than theirs is that they have valves in theirs, and mine is a valveless pulse jet design. It's not that it doesn't have valves, it's that it's redirectional valves.